bring in Keya Chatterjee. She's the executive director of Free DC, a group advocating for self-governance in the nation's capital. She and her group protested outside the White House as the president made his announcement today. Thanks so much for being here. So, Keya, DC still ranks in the top 10 when it comes to homicides. It has a real ongoing problem with juvenile carjackings. More than half the carjackers arrested are under 18. Doesn't something need to be done here?
We definitely need to do something about the safety of the people of DC, but the things that need to be done are things like stopping mass firings, are things like making sure that people have access to housing, people have access to Medicaid, people have access to basic social services that we know reduce crime, that children have an ability to be taken care of. We the people of DC, our elected officials, have reduced crimes to record lows, right? These are records that have been set in reducing crime, and that's because we know how to do it. And that means we also know that what Trump is doing right now is exacerbating crime in DC. Yeah, this whole thing is just a pretext.
Keya, those are record lows compared to your own statistics. You're still 8th when it comes to, homicides across the country. And while crime is down, it is still high. And when you look at these carjackings, I mean, a congressman was carjacked, an FBI agent was carjacked. There's still an issue there when you have these teenage gangs roaming around committing these crimes.
So I was a neighborhood commissioner here in DC. We have neighborhood commissions for every neighborhood in DC. So I am very intimately aware with the day-to-day of what people are experiencing and the need for us to enhance our safety here in DC. I have been working on that issue for decades, and so I know what works. And what I'm trying to tell you is that the things that bring us safety are the things that increase our employment levels, that improve our economy, that give young people things to do. 14-year-olds are children still, and I think it's very dangerous to paint them as something other than children. And I'll just say this, whether they are on private islands or whether they are in our criminal justice system or in our schools, these are children who are 14 years old, and our first and primary job as a people and as a community is to protect our kids. And
except when the kids are committing crimes. We have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old who carjacked an Uber driver and killed him in the process. I think that's the kind of thing that gets people upset. And wonder about how we're treating teenagers in the criminal justice system. We heard Jeanine Pirro this afternoon, argue for pushing the age down to 14 to charge people as an adult. But I take your point. The point is that I think you're alluding to teenagers on a private island, meaning Jeffrey Epstein's island. Those teenagers were victims of crimes. The teenagers we're talking about have been arrested for committing crimes. Keya, stand by. I want to hear more from you, but I also want to bring in someone from the opposing side of this argument. Zack Smith is a senior fellow with the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. Jack, Keya and Mayor Muriel Bowser make the same point that crime is down. So why are we rolling in the military if crime is down 26% this year?
Well, I think we have to put those statistics in context. The 30-year low statistic that has been cited so often in recent days, that comes from January from the Biden administration. I think there are reasons to question the validity of that statistic, whether the crime numbers have been accurately reported. I also think we have to look not just last year, but look at the crime rates today compared to 5, 6, or 7 years ago. And unfortunately, the crime rates today are still much, much higher than they were if we go back 5, 6, 7 years. And I'll give one statistic. If you look at carjackings in 2018, there were 148 carjackings that year. If you look at carjackings in 2023, there were 957, almost 1,000 carjackings. Now, last year, that number decreased substantially, though, again, there are reasons to question whether that number was accurately reported. But that 497 carjackings from 2024, that's still almost triple the number than in 2018. So all of that to say, D.C., unfortunately, is still confronted with a serious violent crime problem.
But Zach, we didn't. I mean, listen, it is eighth when it comes. There are other American cities that have far higher murder rates than Washington, D.C. We don't see federal troops rolling into those cities. We don't see the National Guard rolling into those cities.
Well, D.C. is unique. It's our nation's capital. I think we heard the president say that today. And ultimate authority for what happens in the district rests with the federal government. And unfortunately, I think one of the frustrations we've heard from so many D.C. residents is that there really seems to be a lack of accountability, particularly for very young juvenile offenders. The D.C. Attorney General, who primarily prosecutes juvenile offenders, he has said he will never charge a juvenile as an adult, no matter how violent their crime, no matter how heinous their actions. And it is that lack of accountability that has been so frustrating.
Keya, that brings us back to what you and I were just discussing before I brought Zack in, which is this tension here between Jeanine Pirro, who's now the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. As I said, she called for lowering the age to 14 to when you can charge these teenagers as an adult. The Trump administration clearly believes that D.C. is not being tough enough on youthful offenders. And the D.C. Attorney General had said a couple of years ago, kids will be kids, to explain the light sentences they were getting.
So the Attorney General, the mayor, there's not a single person in D.C. that has asked for this takeover of D.C. You asked a question a few seconds ago, which is why D.C.? And it is because we're the capital, and it's because authoritarians want to take over capitals. It's so that they can control the people and the message, and they can make sure that they are not protested and that people are not demanding their liberties. Hopefully we can all agree that it is a complete overreach to deploy the military in a city that has declining crime rates. Hopefully we can agree that people should decide but through their representatives on the way they are governed. This is a very simple question about, are you on the side of democracy or are you not? The people of D.C. have been clear. We do not want this. Does anyone care what we think? Does it matter whether people whether people think that this is a good idea or not? In a democracy, it matters. So right now we are at a moment where the simple question is, are you on the side of democracy or are you not on the side of democracy? And if you are on the side of democracy, then you want a free D.C. You want a D.C. where our leaders, the people who we elect, make decisions for us, not people who are in the middle of a power grab all over the country. But most importantly, they want to take over our community because they know that that is how authoritarians gain more power. And we are not going to let it happen.
All right, Zack Smith, Keya Chatterjee, thank you both so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.